What I'm here to do this evening is kind of give you an introduction to project management and how you'll be able to use project management not only at school, but also in your day-to-day life as well as in your professional careers. So let's get started. What we're going to do this evening is look in on a designer as they are working with one of their clients.
To Mr. Mark Sherwood, Vice President of Product Development, really big company. Dear Mr. Sherwood, I'm writing to clarify why the product designs you asked for next week will be late. I know that it's important to you, but I have not gotten to check with your engineers in the purchasing department yet. As you recall, your marketing department expanded the project to include packaging and accessories. We discussed the opportunity to meet these targets while we were at it. So I figured that even if it takes 2 weeks longer, it'll be worth it.
Well, I don't know, but I think he needs some help. So what we're going to do for the rest of the evening, short though it may be, is actually take you through some of the basics of project management and see how we can get him back on track.
We never actually discussed whether you wanted to start the packaging project now or wait until after the prototypes were here. Another crap like that.
So how will an awareness of the basics of project management make for a more smoothly running project, happier colleagues, associates, and your team members? I know it's might be kind of interesting the fact that we are going to introduce to you that you can get a degree in project management or a certificate in project management while you're actually in school trying to get another degree. But there are several certificates that are available in project management. One is a certified associate in project management, and that is really geared to people who are beginning their careers outside of perhaps their degree program, but have been working as project managers for a couple of years. The next certificate is a project management professional, and that requires a little more work in the field of project management.
I thought that the packaging company would be providing samples first. I thought that's what they told our graphics team. Oh, delete.
Well, to start off with, what is a project? There's certain key things you need to know about a project. One, basically, it is a temporary effort that creates a unique product or project. It's got to be temporary, and what you produce is unique. A project has to have a start date and an end date. And the result of the project addresses needs or opportunities in a unique way. Now, projects can be very long and involved and expensive. Imagine Boeing producing an aircraft. Or they can be very short, like what you've been doing this semester, well, which hopefully to some of you seems short. Projects can also have a limited time and limited budget. One rule is don't make the simple ones complex and break down the more complex projects into simpler ones. Now, one of my favorite sources, well, an easy one to get to is Wikipedia. Project management is the discipline of planning, organizing, securing, and managing resources to achieve specific goals. Now, resources is pretty broad, but as you've been going through this semester, you've probably had to manage your time, other people, energy, materials, things like that. All of those things are part of project management. They're all your resources. Now, some people are what I consider natural project managers, designers, engineers, many of the business folks, because you're often presented with something that has to be done in a short time frame. I know from working with industrial designers in the past that you really, not only are you harnessing your creativity, but you really have to you communicate, and that is such a big part of project management. You have to communicate both visually, of course, but in written communications and things like that. Some people, however, are not natural project managers.
I know it's a different project. I told you that, but they don't like that idea. So we make the other idea into the project. What do you mean we don't have time?
Well, time's a big deal. But let's start off with some basic definitions. Now, if you've seen these terms that we're going to pull up before, that's wonderful. But if they are new to you, hopefully you'll find them interesting. As you move on, you'll certainly be seeing some of them more and more.
For the next meeting, we would like to have your senior hardware engineer, the assembly and operations manager, and your product development team.
Okay. They're your stakeholders. A stakeholder is anyone affected by your project. So as you move forward, your stakeholders are you. You are a stakeholder. Your team members are stakeholders. The people that you interact with. If you are developing a unique product, the buyer of that product will be stakeholders as well.
Wait a minute. Who said that we're putting wheels on that thing? Was it that old guy? When was the last time you used one of these?
Well, obviously that's our problem statement. Now, problem statement is a measurable need expressed by an audience.
Mr. Sherwood, I understand that your accounting department has delayed the last invoice because of the inclusion of 2 items you added to the September meeting. I know they were not in the proposal, but...
Scope. Has anybody heard scope before? Just a show of hands. Oh, thank you for raising your hands. Even if you didn't hear it before, thank you. Well, scope is the extent of the activity or the extent of your project. We're going to discuss scope and scope creep, anybody? Yes, scope creep. As we go through this. Part of the problem with things like scope creep is we all want to do a good job. We all want to make whoever our client is or our other team members happy. And sometimes by making other people happy, we kind of make our project more than everyone agreed to. And while that might seem like a positive, in the long run it might not be. So we are going to talk this evening a little bit about how to sometimes have those hard conversations with people. When they ask you, well, can't you just make this little change? And you have to say, well, no, I can't.
They said it wanted to be portable, so we screwed a handle on it. That's portable, huh?
We're also going to talk about goals. And goals are the purpose of your efforts. And we're going to discuss what are known as SMART goals. SMEs, subject matter experts. Has anybody heard SMEs before? Okay. Who here has heard SME in regards to Peter Pan? Captain SME. See? So you have heard of them before. Okay. A SME is a subject matter expert, and you are all subject matter experts. There's something that certainly in your projects that you've been working with, or perhaps where you work, where you're the person that people come to for information. In the world of project management, you're often working with SMEs. They're the people that are going to help you identify how long it's going to take to do a particular piece of work. Subject matter experts are important. Next one is communication channels. Now with communication, certainly as a project manager, most of the work you do, frankly, is in communicating. You're either working with your team members, you're working with your sponsors, you might be working with your clients. You are constantly communicating and updating people. Now it's the number of people who need to be updated and how you're going to update them. Will it be through messages, through reports, through emails, however the project's flowing. Now a deliverable, it's something to be done, especially that's something that is a realistic expectation. So
realistic expectations.
Realistic is tough. And risk, okay. Risks are potential points of failures, or they're also opportunities. And that's a key point in the world of project management. When you talk with, if you have a chance to talk with project managers, risks are not always bad. A risk could be something good happening, and are you ready to take advantage of that? Risk mitigation is simply put, your biggest risk is probably your project's not getting done. Okay, so who's part of your project team? Well, your project team are the people that you're working with in order to create that unique product. The project team this evening is DEC, but your stakeholders are broader than that. The stakeholders are everyone that is going to be affected by your project. Okay.
I know what he wants, but what about me?
What about you? Well, you are part of many projects, and you play different roles within the projects. You may not always be the project manager. You may be a subject matter expert or a vital part of the team. You are the PM of your college career. Your teachers, advisors are your subject matter experts. You are a project member assigned to a particular task or role on a team. And you're a stakeholder. You are someone affected by projects. And remember, you are a stakeholder in all of your projects as well because you are affected by the successful completion of that project. And you are responsible for communication, sending and receiving information, and making sure that the information that you send is understood by the person who receives it. And that's very difficult for many of us right now. So not only do you just get to talk at people, you're also responsible for making sure that they understand what you've said and that you understand what they are saying to you as well. A project is made up of phases. Now, in the world of project management, these are called processes, but different disciplines will call them phases, and this is how certainly they can look to the different disciplines in our room today. In design, you've got analyze, define, and a series of things on the screen. In engineering, we've got research, conceptualize. In commerce, we have the 5 that are very similar to what project management calls their processes: initiate, plan, execute, monitor, and close. So we just wanted to give you an example that depending on the discipline that you're working with, you may see some different words, but essentially they mean the same thing. We need to get it started, we need to plan, we need to do the work, we need to make sure that we are staying within our budget, staying on our schedule, staying within our scope, and we need to close our projects as well. Well, what makes a project? These are the 5 processes. We're going to talk about each one this afternoon. But each one of the 5 is comprised of smaller project management processes as well. Now, in product management, you may spend most of your time in executing and monitoring and controlling. But the work done in planning often has the most impact on the project's success. Okay. So what happens when you initiate your project, or when you initiated the project earlier at the beginning of the semester? You probably met with your stakeholders. You needed to uncover the stakeholder needs. You identified your problem statement, and a key there is that it must be measurable. So you'll include the requirements of the project, the class, your portfolio in that. You probably identified some risks. For us here this afternoon, critiques may impact your timeline. So weak, unsupportable claims will not meet any logical challenges. And assumptions also pose risks. And finally, SMART goals. SMART goals are specific, measurable, agreed upon, realistic, and time-based. And I would pay attention to this here because I don't know if anyone here who is like me and no longer a student, when I do my reviews, we have to do our professional reviews with SMART goals. So every 6 months I sit down and I have to come up with a whole new set of goals for myself for the next 6-month period. So an understanding of a SMART goal, specific, measurable, agreed upon, realistic, and time-based, really is very important. So as designers, engineers, and business people, you have several tools available to you to help you initiate your projects. You have the discovery processes, and from a discovery process, we're going to develop some needs assessments. You're going to ask questions to identify the criteria and goals of your projects. So we have a slide here with an example just of some goals, and then we're going to kind of define them a little bit better. So we're going to convert the needs assessments into goal statements. So for example, focus on the audience served by answering the need. First one would be a designer designing things. We'll need a better vacuum cleaner. Well, that's good, but it's vague, and you want to make sure that your goals are as specific as possible. A producer producing things. A lighter vacuum cleaner is easier to carry. We need a lighter vacuum. Well, if you get that statement from a client, how much lighter? Lighter than what? And then consumers buying the things that designers design and the producers produce. A smaller vacuum cleaner is easier to maneuver, but smaller than what? We want to examine the need to make it lighter and smaller, and when we do that, we'll make it a SMART goal. Our SMART goals have been used by product development professionals to help the team agree on all the components of a problem statement and to uncover the real work of the project. So let's say it's design a better stapler.
Design a better stapler.
So does that sound like a SMART goal? No. Thank you, no.
Given our design abilities and input from very big company, design a stapler that can staple up to 50 pages at one time, fits on a desktop, matches very big product branding profile within 60 days. 60 days.
That's certainly smarter. It's specific, so we've gotten input from the X Corp, whatever X Corporation is. It's measurable. So if we produce a stapler that cannot staple up to 50 pages, we haven't met our goal. It's agreed upon. It's realistic given your design abilities, and it's time-based. So we want to do all this within 60 days. The next one is risk. As you begin your process or project, you do want to make sure that you understand the types of risks that you can encounter. Remember, a risk is also an opportunity. Don't assume everything will go smoothly. You'd be really surprised how many people do. It won't go smoothly, but be practical but not negative when you're identifying your risks. So for example, with our specific SMART goal, we have input from X Corp. Well, what happens if they don't return your calls? That's a possibility. You can't get on their schedule. So perhaps what you can do is schedule weekly meetings up front. So you'll do that at the beginning. We need a stapler that staples up to 50 pages at one time. Well, what if that requires technology that's still in development? Well, make that development time part of your schedule. We need to match the branding profile. If the branding is in a stable state, understand the client's intentions. Realistic, given your design abilities. You may need extra expertise, so you can consult with your SMEs. And then time-based within 60 days. Vendors or suppliers can be late. Understand their timing. Also put that in your schedule as well if you think that someone's not going to be able to meet the time frame, the 60 days. The next part in project management is, well, we've identified a project. Now we're going to go into the planning stage. So at this point we take, which is still pretty high level, and we are going to sit down and begin to identify a plan. Now we will identify our tasks, our deliverables, and their dependencies. We're going to estimate the duration. So you are the SME now. Estimate is based on your previous experience. You might want to divide your calendar into weeks. Be realistic though, and don't try to just crunch everything in. Construct a timeline. At this point, the timeline is still very high level. It's a visual representation of your project. Now remember, especially when you're working in a team, there may be things going on in parallel. You can also consider your stakeholders' timelines as well. Now, your schedule or timeline is not the plan. It's part of your plan, but it's not the entire plan. And you also should write a project plan. We have a little bullet there. It's not just a list of deliverables and due dates. You also need to include responsibilities The deliverables must be described. We want to break our project deliverables down into smaller, more manageable components. And view your timelines as outlines. The project plan is where the details are added. Okay, so now we're going to convert our goals into tasks. And we do this by identifying dependencies or precedents. So, for example, we have goal number 1. We're going to create a product feature specification based on competitive research. So how can I break that down into 4 separate tasks? So we'll produce a matrix, meet with experts, choose a set of features and benefits, and then document our findings. Tasks produce deliverables, and many of your deliverables will have dependencies. As you outline your tasks, you'll be able to see the dependencies. They'll become obvious to you.
Hey, since when does February only have 28 days? What do we need for the March meeting?
Well, timelines and project plans. With your timeline, once you have your deliverables and dependencies, you can create your timeline. Keep it simple. You'll need to explain it to your stakeholders probably more than once. With your project plan, again, remember it's not a to-do list. Give yourself time in your plan for reasonable changes. Changes will occur, so you want to make sure you've got some time. Give yourself some flexibility. Communication and documentation are vital to the success of your project. You want to plan your communications. Now, maybe you've put together something like this already. It's a very simple timeline, like a milestone list. What's nice about looking at things like this is it's very easy for other people to kind of grasp where you're going to be at certain points in the timeline. This is a little more detailed. This is something right out of Microsoft Project. And as you can see here, not only do we have our tasks, we've got our durations, start and finish dates, some precedents. You can see what tasks are dependent upon each other. You can also take it to the, not the extreme, but you can also use something like Microsoft Project. In a bigger project, if you are working with other people, you can actually see who maybe is going to be what they call over-allocated at a particular point in time, and begin to do something like resource leveling. Most people love the execution part of the project. Finally getting your hands dirty, getting in and actually creating the project. During the execution phase, you may start to really encounter more risk. So remember, if risks come up, you want to make sure that you have open, honest communication. So don't simply tell teammates what you think they want to hear. That's really important. Because if people just tell you exactly what they think you want, people tell you what they think they want you to hear, then you don't really understand what's going on in your project. So you really need open two-way communication. If you have to have a hard conversation with someone, let's say you're not going to meet a timeline, what we'd recommend is practice what you want to say. It's like role playing. But that way, if you do practice it, you can then begin to understand what you're going to say if they do react. If they are upset with you, you won't be as surprised. So a little bit of role playing can actually help out a lot. Mock interviews, just see how you sound. Practice. Always, though, take the 360 view as well. If you receive bad news or have to give bad news, make sure you show empathy. Also consider how the changes are going to affect all your team members. So in a big project, if you're late with a deliverable, for example, it may impact other people as well. So you want to bear that in mind.
Okay, I get it. That's what you want. The concepts for next year's accessories. Ka-ching.
Keeps his eyes on the prize. Okay. During execution, you're, for example, creating the design concept. And we just have some bullet points up there about what that entails. You're going, or creating a marketing plan. Convert critiques into objective building reviews. Make them interactive information gathering events. Communicate. Acknowledge what you hear in the critical reviews. And respond. Adapt the deliverables to what you've been told. Remember to communicate any change in the project scope to all stakeholders. Justify results and refine concepts. Now sometimes, especially in a large group, you may to agree to a particular change that affects other people. If that change is not communicated, problems are going to occur. So you want to keep that communication, those communication channels open. Okay, now this is the controlling piece. So we've initiated a project, we've done our planning. Fortunately, we got out of planning, we actually are doing some executing. While you're executing your project, you as a project manager are also controlling what's going on. And by controlling, as the manager, you're responsible for time, maybe a budget if you have a budget with your project, as well as the scope. So you do need to work with your team members and understand if they are ahead of schedule, behind schedule, if materials have not arrived. That's part of control. And then we just have some things right there, just some bullet points. And here's where some of the hard conversations can come up. Okay, scope creep. Again, we all want to be liked. We all want to say yes when people ask us a question. Can you do it 5 days faster? Yes, I can. And then you go back and say, oh my God, I really can't. That's a bit of scope creep. Stakeholders, and this includes you, will change your minds. And the product, thus producing scope creep. Let's just add one little thing. And it's not always the sponsor or the client. Sometimes it's designers, perhaps themselves, saying, oh, you know, just one little thing. I can make this one little change. Remember the impact that it can have. Controlling the scope of your project may be your biggest challenge. You have to rein it in. Remember that the project, this course you're in, the semester, and your degree has an end date, so you just can't keep piling things on. Changes may affect your ability to get the product developed within your time frame or your budget. Okay, there are a couple of things to consider, also with scope creep. You don't want to be 95% done. How many times have you been, I'm almost done, almost done. You've got to close out, produce your deliverables, and be done. So controlling the scope is so important there. If you are confronted with requests for adding more, be professional. You can introduce your time, cost, or quality balance to your stakeholders. You know, if they want to add some more, it can take more time, or it may cause you to spend more money, so the budget will have to be increased. It's okay to explain that changes will affect your ability to get the project done on time. Again, you need that open, honest conversation. And I wish those conversations were always easy to have, but they're not. Stick to your timelines and your cutoff dates, and stick to the process you have for evaluating change. Now, that might not be something you're doing right now, but it certainly will be something that you'll encounter later. There should be a process identified for when someone requests a change from you. Again, always be responsive, avoid negative comments. Avoiding negative comments, concerns, or new developments, will damage your project. And a successful project is one that meets the agreed upon scope, usually, hopefully, within time and on budget. So control. How does this relate to your DEC project? Well, you're going to meet to review your project. Again, semester's almost over. Are you almost done? Are you making the most of your resources? Is there real information in your concept? Isolate, identify, impact, and schedule changes. Learn more about the concept from critical feedback that you're receiving. Acknowledge the potential for feedback to cause scope creep. And communicate. Remember how important it is to communicate interactively. Now, execution and control often go hand in hand, because as you are executing your project, you need to control it.
And the team agreed with your engineers that all of the major components would be part of this year's line, but that the additional prototypes would be tested for next year's line. Dear Mr. Sherwood, thank you for the wonderful comments at our project wrap-up meeting. I'm looking forward to seeing the new product display at the trade show in Chicago. The entire project team is very pleased with the early reactions to your sales managers. I will be sending you the final invoice for the project this week. Go money.
Okay. Closing your project. So at the close, you want to review the process and the resulting product. Now you've completed your project and chances are you just want to say, I'm done, that's it. Maybe take a vacation, go away. You know, or if you're like the people that came in and did our kitchen, you didn't finish but you ran off to the next job, you don't want to do that either. You do want to close your projects. You want to finish them. Now, at this point, it's a good idea to thank your stakeholders. That would be a nice touch. And in an ideal world, you would share what you learned with each other. So when the project is done, the deliverables have been given to the appropriate people, and if you are in a more formalized setting, there's probably been sign-offs done as well. At this point, though, it's a great chance for you to identify what went well and what didn't go as well. What would you not do the next time if you had a similar project? Learn from those mistakes. And also in a setting like this, you can share with one another what went well and what did not go as well. Again, you don't have to recreate the wheel. If you get a good project plan up and running, and you have a project, another project a little bit later down the line that's very similar, use what you learned. Document what you learned from your project again and your stakeholders so you can apply it to your next project. Okay. Oops. All right. A word about communication. We've mentioned communication several times. It is important to leave a paper trail, email trail, Twitter, whatever, for your projects. Every change to the project should be documented. If someone asks for a change or wants to add information, changes your scope. It's a good idea to reduce the verbal information to writing. And as I mentioned earlier, in large projects, for example, you won't get a change started unless you identify the change, understand the impact, and someone signs off on it. For example, at the very bottom, with the industrial design best practice says to update your most recent sketch or images to reflect the state of the project. This should circulate to all your stakeholders so they see the current version. Remember to let everyone know what you were doing. Show what you've done and what you are doing. And with communication, I always find you're going to talk or you're going to speak with more people than you think you would have to, and you're going to have to tell them more things and more often than you thought you would have to. See, now, I don't know if there's a room full of expiring, oh my God. People who are now inspired to run out and manage projects. I don't know. But again, industrial designers, and I've been living with one for quite a while, and I neglected to introduce Mike, my personal industrial designer. A more natural project manager I have yet to meet. It's just the ability to create, but to get it done in a timeline, a time frame is so important. Now, but you can do this. Projects can be simple or complex. Don't make the simple ones more complex than they are. Don't be risk adverse. Everything you do has some risk associated with it. If you understand them, you'll be able to plan for them. If you are pushed to make changes and that scope creep comes, remember, you can push certain buttons. Quality, cost, or time if you're pushed to add deliverables or to radically shorten your timeline. And also communicate. You've got to communicate.
LMF.
These are what normally happens in the 5 process groups or phases. Normally, you start off and initiate, plan, execute, control, and close. Remember, your two-way communication moves the project along, but we'll make this available with the presentation. Couple of other things. resources. Oh my gosh, there is so much information out there about project management. Some of these are really good sites to get you started. One is, believe it or not, Wikipedia's got a great deal of information. It's easy to get to about project management. Also, Microsoft, if anybody here has Microsoft Project, for example, or even Excel, you can go to the Microsoft website and download templates for Excel and for Project. You're not sure how to create a project plan? Download it. See if what you've downloaded matches what you need to do and take it from there. General project management resources, there are an awful lot of good ones. OPM is one. Sample project planning tools include IX Project and SmartDraw. And finally, if you are interested in project management as an additional certification to your degree, Project Management Institute, actually headquartered in Newtown Square, Pennsylvania, has a lot of information there for you as well. Okay. There we have a line. See? Very nice. Ooh, okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you.